Hello and welcome to episode 111 of Glitch Report. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for stopping by, saying hi, kicking it with me today. We are not live on Twitch for a couple of reasons. We'll be back streaming live next week for those that are wondering, but you are getting the audio version of this podcast and perhaps even the video version of this podcast. I have upgraded a little bit of lighting, which you can definitely hear. You can hear the difference in the lighting just in this very first episode alone. I'm excited to be here with you, whether I am live or not. I am alive. This isn't like one of those, grim final messages. If you're hearing me talk about the PlayStation 5 Pro, it means that I'm dead. No. I am still kicking and all of that good stuff. But hey, thank you for joining me on the show today. We got a hell of a show. I was all ready to come on this very podcast as the host of this show and open the show talking about the PlayStation 5 Pro. And that's not to say that the PlayStation 5 Pro isn't, worthy of being the number one headline. But I would argue that like the cost of human livelihoods and job losses, I think, go above and beyond any sort of console announcement, especially when it's a half-step console upgrade like with the PlayStation 5 Pro. But, I don't know if it's these HR departments or whoever, but they just, in the dead of night, they say it's Wednesday night, and you know what that means. Microsoft is cutting 650 staff from its gaming teams. That was announced, actually, I think this morning it was announced, but, like these in the night, kind of planning it, to drop on a random Thursday morning in the end. So that's another 650 staff, right? Like Microsoft has seen cuts and cuts and cuts and cuts to it. They've seen more cuts than a DJ as far as I'm concerned. And this is going again to the gaming teams over at Microsoft and Xbox. However, Phil Spencer really, a man who is an expert in, well, maybe not an expert. He's experienced in damage control. Whether he is an expert in it or not, I will leave that up to you. You have heard his words quoted directly on this podcast many, many times. Phil Spencer out there claiming that, quote, no games, devices, or experiences will be canceled as a result of the cuts. But that is 650 cuts. So this ended up being a Thursday morning thing. As I'm getting this news story from Video Games Chronicles. As always, shout out to Video Games Chronicles. This was first reported by GameFile. Microsoft's head of gaming, Phil Spencer, shared the news with employees in a company-wide email on Thursday. Quote, as part of the aligning our post-acquisition team structure and managing our business, we have made the decision to eliminate approximately 650 roles across Microsoft Gaming, mostly corporate and supporting functions, to organize our business for long-term success. Throughout our team's history, we've had great moments and we have had challenging ones. Today is one of those challenging days. I know that going through more changes like this is hard, but even in the most trying times, this team has been able to come together and show one another care and kindness as we work to continue delivering for our players. He has a full message for the team that was provided or collected from IGN. But I really just wanted to paint a picture of where we're at with Microsoft and with the layoffs and stuff like that, because this 650 is perhaps a drop in the bucket of the amount of people who have lost their jobs at Xbox since the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. We are now up to 2,500 jobs since the $69 billion deal went through. Microsoft said, and I'm just going to remind you of kind of how did we get here? Microsoft's head of gaming announced in January that 1,900 staff would be laid off across Activision, Blizzard, Bethesda, and Xbox. Now, at the time, Phil Spencer claimed the decision was to cut jobs was ultimately the result of a lack of growth in the industry. And as part of previous cuts, Xbox closed Hi-Fi Rush developer Tango Gameworks and Redfall studio Arcane Austin. So, where are we at? Well, the news followed just a year on from Microsoft's previous round of layoffs, which partially affected its gaming teams. Last year, January 2023, it confirmed plans to lay off approximately 10,000 employees, and this is wider Microsoft layoffs. So last year, Microsoft had plans to lay off approximately 10,000 employees, which is around 4.5% of the U.S. tech giant's 220,000 person workforce. In case you're wondering where we're at with video game layoffs for the year, I have good news for you. I can provide you with that data. Total estimated job losses in 2024 alone for game industry, 11,540, which, in case you were wondering, is more than last year. Last year was about 10,500. The year before that was about 8,500. No signs of slowing down. In fact, it's already blown past last year's estimates. So I bring this up because for a couple of reasons. I'm going to get into maybe how we got here beyond just the acquisition of Activision Blizzard in a moment. But you know, this like my heart continues to go out to every single person involved in who has been laid off. I should say, not everyone involved in the layoffs, but everyone who has been laid off. If you've lost your job, if you're losing work because of this, my heart goes out to you, and I hope everybody lands on their feet. But the problem is that we've seen with cuts industry wide is that even if you wanted to land on your feet, even if you're trying to position yourself to land on your feet, you still end up in this scenario where it's like, okay, I want to go to Ubisoft. Oh, Ubisoft's letting people go. Oh, I want to go to Sony. Oh, Sony's letting people go. Oh, I want to go to, you know, if you're not going to, basically the only company that may not be laying that many people off is Nintendo, and that's because they are trying to launch a console sometime next year, and laying people off in that process may not be a good job. However, like a good idea, excuse me. Laying people off before the Switch 2 comes out is probably not a good idea. However, just to point out is that, like, you know, PlayStation is also launching their PS5 Pro. They have let go a large number of people throughout their company, so they don't even have that many people to work on games to promote the PS5 Pro anyways. So a really weird, pretty grim situation we find ourselves in industry wide, from what I'm seeing so far. Now, the thing to note is that there is a lot of finger pointing from the top of Microsoft to just the core of Xbox and anyone and everyone in between, right? You will have people say, well, if the games are better, if Redfall was a good game, if these games sold XYZ, we wouldn't be in this scenario. To which I would say, we haven't even given Activision Blizzard enough time to put out a Call of Duty game to see what the effects of Xbox owning, you know, Activision Blizzard is like. We literally haven't even given that game or any other game by any stretch, with the exception of like Diablo 4. But Diablo 4 is not going to do Call of Duty numbers. We have not actually given the, you know, teams at Activision and Blizzard a chance to prove themselves under the guidance of Xbox. So there's that to know. We're already jumping the gun with letting people go. I don't care if, you know, Phil Spencer says, oh, we're letting go administrative people, you know, corporate people, whatever. The fact is that, like, those people are working PR or they're working, you know, in marketing or whatever, right? Like, they are the people who would have been this time last year getting a game like Modern Warfare 3 out the door, marketing it, promoting it, you know, review codes, whatever, right? Those people would have been doing something. And they don't even get a chance to do that this time around under a game that was going to most likely be a better and bigger game than Modern Warfare 3. I'm talking about Black Ops 6. So there's that. finger pointing at Phil Spencer saying you can't keep doing this. You have, you know, if you want to get colorful with the language, some might say that, you know, Phil Spencer and the Xbox leadership team have fucked Xbox into the dirt. Would I go as far as to say that? No, I don't think we're quite there yet. They have lost the last two console generations. But if the rumors are true that they're going to get a head start on the next generation of consoles by skipping a Xbox Series X Pro and maybe having a console at the door, perhaps next year, late next year, or the year before, year after that, you know, there might be a chance of saying, hey, we're cheaper than whatever the current offerings are, backwards compatibility, better games, whatever. Like there is hope. There might not be a lot of hope, but if there's 1% hope, I would still say there's hope in terms of Microsoft and Xbox being able to turn this around. However, people also point to Phil Spencer being in a position where he has to tighten the belt around Xbox because of the other business moves that are being done by Microsoft, such as heavy investments into AI. I'm not here to talk about investments into AI or the fruits of those investments or anything like that. Like I honestly, I don't know enough about any of that stuff to comment. I will simply do this tiny amount of speculation, and bear with me. If that business industry of AI is not showing a lot of growth or a lot of results, or if it's not actually making any money currently, and Microsoft still feels the need to continue to invest, doubling, tripling, quadrupling down, at some point, something has to be the scapegoat, the Jack Perry of Microsoft, you know, throughout their sections of business, right? If they are going to keep shoveling money into AI, regardless of what they actually get out of it, they will probably look to suffering, struggling portions of their business like Xbox and say, well, you know, hey, you know, they'll come up with any reason to let these people go. They'll come up with any reason. It doesn't even have to be the speculation around their you know, investments in AI, right? But you can imagine this scenario where this big company is perhaps tunnel vision, despite being, you know, involved in the cloud and augmented reality and gaming, and they're the Windows people. Like, there's so many fingers in so many pies, but they seem to have stuck their whole fist into AI. They're fisting AI, for lack of a better word. And whether Xbox is in that rough of a shape as far as the parent company sees it or not, I don't know. But you can imagine a scenario where they are going all in on AI, and anything that is struggling, like Xbox clearly is, may be getting the short end of the stick as it pertains to support within the parent company. That's all. I'm just speculating. That's all I'm saying. I don't know if that is the case, but you have seen messaging, and even here on this very podcast, when I read, you know, statements by Phil Spencer, right? Like, we've seen this kind of, you know, attitude adjustment, and I'm not talking John Cena when I say Phil Spencer seems to be trying to run a business in a way that he wasn't, you know, a few years ago, right? He was not, worried about the bottom line. He was worried about hearts and minds. And that does not seem to be the case anymore, right? They seem to be trying to run it like a business. And I'm going to get to other companies running this like a business in a moment, because I think pricing and availability and spend and budget for a lot of stuff within gaming has gotten really out of whack, whether it be consoles, whether it be games themselves. Like, I'm going to get to that in a moment, but you're starting to see scenario where whether Xbox has run out of goodwill with Microsoft or not, it seems like Phil Spencer's out there hustling in a way he hasn't since taking over as Xbox leadership. We'll move on to the big news, the big bad news. Well, no, the jobs cuts were bad news, but the big news being that Sony has officially unveiled the PlayStation 5 Pro, starting at $700 US. They showed this off. What day was this? Was this on Tuesday? I believe this was on Tuesday that they showed this off. Where do we even begin? There was a trailer. There was also a 9-minute tech video where they had Mark Cerny, the Dana Carvey of gaming, showing off kind of what's under the hood, what they're going for, why they're doing this, and also where this fits in with the larger PlayStation 5 family. The reason why I bring that up is because they spent a good amount of time in a 9-minute video talking about how happy they were with the PS5 and why they were doing this. So you may be playing a lot of PS5 games on your PlayStation 5 console. And if you are playing a lot of PS5 games, you may notice that there's a lot of different graphics mode options available for those games. Performance mode, quality mode. Sometimes you get a resolution mode. Sometimes you get a middle tier mode that tries to balance you get a little bit of ray tracing and it runs at 4K and you don't get 60 frames per second, but you get 40 or something like that, right? It's kind of this split of hey, if you want to play this game at 4K resolution, it is going to be a 30 frames per second experience, and you don't get any ray tracing. Or do you want ray tracing? It will still be at 30 frames per second, but it might not be at a full 4K resolution. Or, hey, you want to play at 60 frames per second, you can get it at 1080p instead of 4K, and you don't get ray tracing. Or, maybe we do a ray tracing performance mode where it gets you a little bit of ray tracing and it sticks to 1080p 60 frames. You look at those options and you start to think, fuck, last time I had a PlayStation console, I just put the game in and I didn't have to think about any of that stuff, right? You didn't have to think about, do I want performance? And it really felt unfortunately, it felt immediately out of the gate with the PlayStation and for the Xbox for that matter, that they were already starting to split the difference. They weren't giving you the full experience. Everything was a compromise immediately out of the gate with stuff like the PlayStation 5, as Sony tries to depict it in this video. Immediately out of the gate, the PS5 was offering some amount of compromises, and they just don't think that was good enough. They didn't like the idea of offering a compromise to players. So this is why they have the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, I want to go back to the PlayStation 4 and the PS4 Pro for a moment. The PS4 was a underpowered console at the time. The tech that was in it felt dated, even by a little bit, out of the gates. It went on to have great games and great looking games and all this stuff, don't get me wrong. But if you just looked at, what you could get for, if we compare it with PCs and stuff like that, out of the gate with the PS4, it felt a little underdeveloped, just from what tech they could have put in it at the time and for the cost, more or less, which is an even bigger issue than the Xbox. But we're not talking about the Xbox, we're talking about PlayStation 4. But just for context, with the PS4 Pro, Sony's argument was that we have seen an adoption of 1080p resolution to 4K resolution in ownership of TVs since the PS4 came out, and we're looking to have games run at 4K in order to meet the standards set by the majority of TVs that are being purchased at this moment by consumers and by people who own PlayStations, right? Now, I have some notes here. I'm trying to pull this up because I actually did not put them on my computer. I put them on my phone. If you don't know Matt Piscatella is a industry analyst. So there's a lot to, just reading the tea leaves and the numbers and stuff like that from a business standpoint. I just want to point this out because this is something I pulled from him in regards to the PS4 Pro. The PS4 Pro accounted for 13% of all PS4s sold and accounted for 15% of dollars made on the consoles. So a minority of the minority of PS4 users ended up being PS4 Pro users, right? Now, one thing to address is the price. We're going to maybe talk a little bit more price in a moment, but I don't have the numbers on me, but the gap between the PS5 and the PS4 Pro price is wider than the PS4 and PS4 Pro prices when those were both out at the same time. But let's get to the specs itself. According to Sony, the PS5 Pro is going to be able to have roughly 45% better rendering of graphics and gameplay. And that is accounted for because it has 67% more more compute units and about 28% faster memory. But overall, they're saying it's about a 45% faster rendering experience when it comes to the console itself. And then they kind of talked about the big three when it comes to the big three features that they are trying to implement into this PS5 Pro. So they talked about advanced ray tracing, which is basically allows for real-time lighting. Instead of it being like baked in naturally into the scene, the ray tracing and lighting is sort of a living element to the world, so it can react a little bit more naturally. Shadows, light casting, and reflections tend to be a lot more natural. But you also get a huge performance hit when it comes to frame rate and graphics because it is such an intensive thing. So Sony is trying to get into this idea of advanced ray tracing that can potentially do double this or even triple the speeds of rendering that ray tracing lighting in the PS5 Pro compared to the PS5. They also talked about the PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, which is an AI-driven upscaling method that uses machine learning to provide sharper image and clarity. So potentially, let's use normal human language to describe this. First of all, this is not a new technology. I have a NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3090 Ti. It supports something called DLSS, and you might also see FSR from AMD and XeSS from Intel. Anyways, the point is that what that is doing is it's actually rendering the graphics, the overall game, at a lower resolution. So it might actually render the game internally at 720p and then use that upscaling technology to, force the game back into a 1080p 4K, whatever resolution you're playing it at state. And the idea is that you may lose some clarity, but you are getting a massive boost in performance as it relates to stuff like frame rate. I have used DLSS. I think it is as close to a game changer from a graphics perspective as I've experienced so far. I think ray tracing is great. I think ray tracing is awesome. However, I can maybe think of two games where that type of lighting rendered in that way made the game feel like something I couldn't experience without that feature. And I'm talking about Cyberpunk 2077, and I'm talking about Alan Wake 2. I played, like I have ray tracing on my Forza Horizon 5. It's a good looking game, but if you turn it off, hey, it turns out that lighting is still really good looking because they need good natural baked in lighting, from the game to produce good looking ray tracing if you turn that feature on. So that is also something. So again, that's the ray tracing. That is the ray tracing. That is the PSSR features as well. I'm just pulling up what was the other thing that they did. So AI driven upscaling and their version of DLSS. One thing to note: no disk drive in this. 2 terabytes, no disk drive. And vertical stand not included either. You do get a controller out of the gate. Now, I want to talk about something that you might already experience on your PS5, which is Game Boost. There are enhancements that are coming to the PS5 Pro Game Boost, which can apply to more than 8,500 backwards compatible PS4 games playable on PS5 Pro. These features are vague. They're incredibly vague, but Sony says that these features may stabilize or improve the performance of supported PS4 games and PS5 games. So even if a game is not PS5 Pro enhanced, like on the box, labeled, whatever, maybe they do a patch, you might find a game that just gets a little bit of boost here and there, graphical resolution, frame rate wise, whatever, by playing it on a PS5 Pro, be it PS4 or PS5 games. Enhanced image quality for PS4 games is also available to improve the resolution on select PS4 games. This is a quote by the CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment, Hideki Nishino, who says, "We developed PS5 Pro with deeply engaged players and game creators in mind, as many have asked for a console that runs even higher fidelity graphics with smoother frame rates at 60 frames per second." Now, there is also, I'm going to pull this up here. There's a list of games that will be enhanced with patches or when they come out. I'm going to pull that up in a moment. He kind of gives 2 examples of games. Mark Cerny gives 2 examples of games during the showcase, to which he showed off Horizon Forbidden West, which will now run at 4K at 60 frames per second, as well as The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered will target a super smooth 60 frames per second. So I did not watch this presentation on a 4K screen. I didn't. However, when I look at what they showed, I couldn't see a difference. I could barely, if there was a difference that caught my eye, it was because during the video, they zoomed in on some grass or the crowd in, some grass in Last of Us Part 2, or the crowd during the parade scene in Ratchet and Clank or something. And they were like, see, look at this. But like, if I was just playing the game, I don't know if I would see a difference. Now, I can see the difference between 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second. I've seen friends and family members where I have shown toggling off and on, performance versus fidelity versus resolution mode, whatever on a PS5 Pro. And they maybe don't care, or they don't really see the difference. And as someone who does see the difference and is often scrutinizing graphics, maybe more so than other people, I could hardly see the difference in what was depicted during the examples given at the PS5 Pro showcase. So off to a bad start in terms of providing much of a reason or selling people on this idea. I want to pull up now the games that have been confirmed, because there is a list. It's a pretty small list. Now, this list is incomplete according to Sony, and that around 50 games will be enhanced for the system when it launches in November. But for now, here is the current list. It's Alan Wake 2, Assassin's Creed Shadows, which, for the record, Assassin's Creed Shadows, the only game unreleased that has been confirmed to have a PlayStation 5 Pro enhanced support out of the gate. Let's continue. Demon's Souls, Dragon's Dogma 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Gran Turismo 7, Hogwarts Legacy, Horizon Forbidden West, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, The Crew Motorfest, The First Descendant, and The Last of Us Part 2. Now they did give another example. Sony showed off Gran Turismo running at 8K on an 80-inch TV, but they didn't say if it will be supported when the PS5 Pro version actually ships. They did say that Gran Turismo 7 will now feature ray tracing reflections between cars during gameplay, and that is continuing to support its targeted 60 frames per second. I keep going back to continuing to support its targeted whatever. This language is so vague. In fact, there is currently no guidelines on what needs to be required as part of the PlayStation 5 Pro enhanced version of a game. Let me say that again. There is no guideline on what games are supposed to support or what enhancements they're supposed to bring to the table when they get a PlayStation 5 Pro update. So you might be thinking, well, okay, so what? What a big deal, right? Different games are going to have different ways of handling the tech that they do and all that stuff. Okay, but didn't Mark Cerny say that he doesn't want, people to feel there's a compromise between resolution, frame rate, and ray tracing, on its PlayStation games? Well, what happens if, let's say, Grand Theft Auto 6, just for a moment, hear me out, a game that's in development and has potentially the time to see those updates through to the best of their ability. If the PS5 Pro version of, Grand Theft Auto 6 does not feature ray tracing, or does not run at 60 frames per second, or does not run at, 4K 30 or something, what's the point of owning a PS5 Pro? Right? Because you're still getting the compromise. Now, I want to just quickly say, before I get too ahead of myself on banging the drum on what feels like an inconsequential upgrade, developers have every right and should have every right to, upgrade and update and develop their games as they want. There are some companies and some developers that will be very focused on having a high frame rate in something like a racing game, in something like a fighting game, or a shooter, Call of Duty, running at 60 frames per second, right? There will be games like Cyberpunk or Alan Wake that will want to take advantage of new technology that maybe affects their performance, like with ray tracing. And developers have every right to decide how they see fit, right? I think Marvel Spider-Man 2, you can get ray tracing at 40 frames per second instead of 30. But like I said, right, like developers can do this. But at the end of the day, Sony is trying to sell a PlayStation 5 Pro. They are trying to sell these games, whether again or for new owners, whatever the case may be. They have not done a very good job, from everything I have learned, to get people excited about a PS5 Pro. And it's not even factoring in the price. I am just talking about what the PS5 Pro does for you. Now, it's not out yet. Things could change. Guidelines could change. Certification requirements for these games could change. The price is not going to change, right? You're going to pay $700 American, unless you don't want to, in which case you won't buy it. But I think $700 American to maybe play Gran Turismo at 8K is, how would I put it? just not worth my time, not worth my money. This whole thing feels inconsequential at the moment. Now, you might be arguing, GnittWitt, you are a price conscious consumer. You are, you got a PC because it can do a variety of things and play your games, and you're not just interested in, the raw power. You're interested in the price. You're interested in, fitting this into your life. You're interested in XYZ. Okay, that's totally fine. Except that I don't know if this performance bump is going to be enough for people who are hardcore, graphics heads, right? Now, if you have more than enough money to consider this purchase to be kind of a fun little treat for yourself, then fine, you're going to get the best PS5, and no one's arguing that the PS5 Pro is not the best PS5 that's out there today. No one is arguing that. But how much are you actually going to get for what you're paying for? I think they have not done a very good job of showcasing that. At least as of right now. Things could change, right? And, big games coming out could have huge, changes to them. But also keep in mind that if this console is going to, represent less than a quarter of all PS5s sold, they're still going to need to provide a good experience on the base console, which is the regular PS5. So I don't think that if you own a PS5, you are missing out, at least as of right now. I don't think you're missing out on owning a PS5 Pro. However, if you are somebody who has the money and does not care, or thinks they could swing it if they traded in their PS5 and whatever, hey, you know what? More power to you, and that seems to be the main selling point, is more power. I just have a hard time, being excited about what is available, because this seems like such a small upgrade and such an unnecessary upgrade, unlike what we saw with the with the PS4 and the PS4 Pro. So there's a technical presentation hosted by Mark Cerny. You can check that out on YouTube. There's also the reveal trailer that's also up on YouTube if that is your thing. And then finally, speaking of price, so like I said, $700 US for the PS5 Pro. That's like $960 Canadian, not before tax. It's a pretty petty. I have not actually confirmed this price change in Canada, but in the US, Sony has raised the prices of the DualSense controllers by $5. I'm gonna go to Amazon.com right now. Oh, you know what? I might not be the right person to do this because I don't remember what they cost, originally. But on Amazon.com, a DualSense controller is $94 or $31.34 over the next 3 months on select payment plans. So I don't remember if in Canada it was 90 or what it was. I'll tell you right now, $95 is a lot of money for a controller. So when I talk about the pricing of things being whack, I think accessories are priced too high. I think consoles are priced too high. I think the games themselves can be priced too high. And I'll get to the maybe games that have been too expensive in a moment. But if that is the case, $95 is a hell of a lot of money for a console, Canadian price wise. Oh yeah, did I mention no disk drive on the PS5 Pro, right? So $700 gets you the 2 terabyte SSD plus all the bells and whistles of the upgrades. No vertical stand, no disk drive, 2 terabytes of storage. Doesn't seem like a great deal. And then again, neither are those controllers. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at the Xbox prices in a moment. I'm going to take a break. When we come back, we'll quickly just run down the prices of the Xbox consoles, and then we'll get to more news. Stick around. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the podcast. I continue to be GnittWitt. So what I did is I kind of pulled up the cost of the PS5 and the PS5 Pro, and I have compared it with the Xbox consoles. I didn't mention this up at the top, but November 7th for the PS5 Pro. November 7th is the release date for the PS5 Pro. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ignore the like most people in this world, I'm going to ignore the Xbox Series S for pricing because it's such a cheaper console. And what I'm just going to do is just show you the current offerings for the Xbox Series X when compared with the PS5 and the PS5 Pro. So the pricing right now for the PlayStation 5, the digital edition, is $570, and this is Canadian prices. This is Canadian prices. I'm doing Canadian prices, Canadian math over here. I gotta add the maple syrup with the Timbits, and anyways, that's math. All right, $579 for the digital console of the PS5, $650 for the disc model of the PS5, $950. It's additional $300 for the additional. $960, excuse me. $960 for the PS5 Pro, $650 for the disc console, $580 for the digital console. I want to compare that with Xbox for a moment. Xbox has one Xbox Series X out now, and then two Xbox Series X's that are coming out later this year, October. So what did I say? I said $579 for digital PS5, $650 for disc PS5, and $950 for the PS5 Pro. The current Xbox Series X is $650, and that includes the disc drive and 1 terabyte of storage. In October, Xbox will be offering an all digital Xbox Series X with 1 terabyte of storage, no disk drive, for $600, more than even the PS5 digital. And that same month in October, Xbox will also offer a 2 terabyte with a disk drive Xbox Series X for $800. I think, you want to know what I think? I think the Xbox is too much money. I think the Xbox, like, I'm not saying that the PlayStation 5 console isn't expensive either. But when I look at $650 for an Xbox Series X or $650 for a PS5, most people are going to want to buy a PS5 over an Xbox unless they want Game Pass, in which case, great. It's a great deal, whatever. I think asking $600 for a all digital Xbox Series X is too much money. I think that's too much money, especially when that's $20 more than an Xbox, $20 more than a PS5 digital edition. That's ridiculous. Also, no disc drive sold. Like, you can't go buy a disc drive after this with the Xbox Series X. Like, you can't the way you can with the PS5. And I gotta be honest, I think 2 terabytes for $800 Canadian for an Xbox Series X with the disc drive is not a very good deal. It's not a good deal. I think that is way too close of a price to the PS5 Pro, in my humble opinion. If you are out there trying to buy a console, or you're trying to upgrade your console or whatever you're trying to do, I just think the Xbox consoles are a little too cheap. A little too expensive at the moment. However, I would argue that even the PS5 consoles are too expensive at the moment. Everything is too expensive. Hey, have you heard the news that everything is too expensive at the moment? Not everything. Some things. Most things. I don't know. I'm not an economics anything person, but those are the prices. I'll do it one more time. $579 for the digital PS5, $650 for the disc PS5, $960 for the PS5 Pro, in comparison with $650 for the 1 terabyte Xbox Series X with the disc drive, $600 for the 1 terabyte Xbox Series X no disc drive, and $800 for the 2 terabyte disc drive Xbox Series X. You know, that's not, listen, if you think more about like the fact that you would never have to buy a game again if you didn't want to with the Game Pass, then yes, it is a steal of a deal. But it doesn't change the fact that you know, it's steep. It's steep. Of course, there is also the Xbox Series S if you are trying to, you know, get in on a cheaper console or something like that. But then again, it's not as powerful of a console and all of that stuff. Let's move on. What's the other news story? Oh my goodness, I thought I was never going to talk about this game again, but I guess I am. Star Wars Outlaws put out an update that tweaks the stealth of the early levels. It also adds cross progression and cross saving. So if you're playing it across different consoles, or I would have to imagine that in order to play it across multiple consoles, you would need to have multiple. You'd have to have multiple versions of the game, which that seems crazy, but whatever. The new update will fix some of the instant fail in the early stealth missions and tweaks and improvements on some of the challenging stealth moments. It features cross progression and cross saving, overall PC performance, improvement and optimization. It also fixes some crashes and stability improvements. It fixes a trophy glitch that was in the PS5 version. The hyperspace mission is now fixed. Various bugs and fixes affecting the quest system has also been improved. The creative director of Star Wars Outlaws has been out there really champion for the game and all that stuff, and hey, more power to him. But they put out a statement saying that this patch is an important step in our commitment to keep improving on the game. Tell me what you think needs to be looked at. I've told them what needs to be looked at. The stealth is bad, and the shooting is bad, and graphically it's not very good. If it can get better PC performance, then maybe I could crank up the graphics a little bit more, get some more ray tracing or something. But I don't know if that's going to make a difference. So I was thinking about this. I don't want to keep, kicking Star Wars Outlaws when it's down, and I refuse to. I just want to talk about what the release of that game was like. I'm not going to pick on any individual qualities of the game. I just want to talk about what the release of that game was like. You had to pay extra money for the ability to play that game in early access. If you played the game during the early access period, you had a game-breaking PlayStation 5 bug that required you to wait for the update and then delete your save. Two. One, you had to pay extra money. Two, you had a PS5 game-breaking save issue. 3, you got to experience the worst stealth in that game. And for what? Like, this feels like a scenario where this game should have launched at early access at a cheaper price and then increased the price later when all the bugs and shit were improved, the same way other early access games do. And if you don't know, early access games, when they come on early access, sometimes they're cheaper. 10%, $20 cheaper, whatever, right? It could be a variety of pricing available. But, the reason why you're paying less money for the game, but getting it early access, is because you will be experiencing bugs and unfinished states of the game, but maybe you want to feel involved with communicating with the developers to say, hey, this isn't working, but I'd really love to see this, or whatever, right? But hey, you get to feel like you're boots on the ground, you're part of the game development, and that's an empowering thing for some people, and I will never want to take that away from them. But this is Ubisoft. This is like, triple A game companies don't get much bigger than Ubisoft. So you have this creative director being like, tell me what you think needs to be looked at. You need to look at the way you released this game. And I'm not saying the creative director had, a huge, had a huge involvement in the way the game was released. But at the end of the day, this game should not have launched the way it did. Right? I have not played it. I don't know what the stealth sequences are like. I don't know if the improvements have been huge. I don't know. I have not looked at the game. But you really only get one chance to make a first impression. And when that first impression is, hey, we're going to charge you the most amount of money for this game, and it's not going to be what we need it to be, so we're going to continue to update it, you've effectively wasted your customers' time and your customers' money. And in this case, it's easy for me to just write the game off. I'm getting pretty good, and it's not always like this, but I'm getting confident in, knowing when a game is or isn't for me. Whether it's a good game, whether it's a bad game that just doesn't connect with me, I'm getting confident and pretty decent in how long it takes for me to realize a game isn't for me. And in the case of Star Wars Outlaws, it took about 3-ish hours for me to realize I never want to do that stealth ever again. I don't think the shooting's very good. The PC performance, for the record, some people are saying the game looks good, and if they think the game looks good graphically, that's fine. I played that game on a 1080p monitor. I played that game at 1440p resolution. I played it with ray tracing on. I played it on a 4K TV, in my living room. I played it in a variety of situations and circumstances, and at no point did I think that game looked amazing. So I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure what people were playing that game on. Maybe they're playing on a PS5 where it looks better. I don't know. I didn't think that game looked great at the time, and I think it's really disappointing to see a game of any state, regardless of whether it's Outlaws or any other game, come out, be as mediocre as it is, need these updates, but also charge people so much money for that optional early access. Like, I just feel like people got screwed top to bottom, and I just don't think it's acceptable unless you're explicitly putting out a game that is an early access game, which was not what happened with Star Wars Outlaws, but maybe Ubisoft should consider it for their next game. Ubisoft's shares continue to drop. Investors are now urging the company to go private. It is a public company. If you would like to buy the dip, as the finance bros say, if you want to invest in the dip that is Ubisoft right now, you can go buy shares of Ubisoft. They're cheap. I don't know if they're cheap. I don't know. I didn't look. But they fell almost 10% during trading, closing down 7.13%. It has fallen more than 50% over the last 12 months, and it now sits at a 10-year low. Now, I don't take a lot of stock, and I'm not particularly interested in what hedge fund investors and finance bros and, tech bros have to say, right? Because I don't often think that they live in the same world that I do. But regardless, they put out a thing. It was an open letter calling for strategic and structural changes at Ubisoft. It urged the board to consider taking the company private, implement a comprehensive cost reduction program, and optimize staffing levels to be more comparable with industry leaders, increase its focus on core IPs, and consider replacing current CEO and everyone's favorite Frenchman, Yves Guillemot. The Slovakia-based AJ Investments holds less than 1% in Ubisoft, according to the Wall Street Journal. Okay, first of all, I don't believe in optimizing staff levels of any kind, especially considering we just talked about Microsoft. I don't think anybody should be losing their job at Ubisoft I don't think that cost cutting necessarily makes a big difference unless the budget for these games is getting out of control. There's a way to scale staff levels, be a quicker turnaround on games with a smaller budget. You've seen this with Remedy, and you've seen this with CD Projekt Red when they're talking about, we're going to consistently have people shuffling off of projects. We're doing, pre-development. We're pre-planning for a game. We're going to keep you on. Oh, we're now, main game development. Okay. And then we're going to shuffle you off for the last 6 months of development because we have a separate team that's going to work on polishing the game up. We just keep the ball rolling, baby. But that doesn't seem to be the case with Ubisoft because they have everybody on the planet developing an Assassin's Creed game at any given point, when really they should maybe be focusing on one Assassin's Creed game in development at any given time. But hey, what do I know? So I think there is a way to do comprehensive cost reduction programs without optimizing staffing levels, which is such a fucking gross way of saying we should probably let go people. Increased focus on its core IP. I don't know if I want to play any more Assassin's Creed games, Tom Clancy games, Far Cry games than I already am, dog. Like, they got to the point where they burned so much goodwill with the Far Cry name that they had to slap the Far Cry game on an avatar coat of paint and call it the Frontiers of Pandora, or whatever that game was called. So we focus on more core IP just means just shoveling out the same old that we already know. Now, I'm not here to say that, anybody deserves to lose their job at Ubisoft. However, what is the point of being a CEO? What's the point of being a boss like Yves Guillemot if you don't take responsibility for your company? If taking responsibility ultimately means living by the sword and dying by the sword, then yeah, maybe they need a leadership change, right? The same way we thought, hey, maybe Xbox needs a leadership change with Phil Spencer, right? But Ubisoft doesn't seem to be doing, big business right now. Creative director, we talked about this last week, creative director Star Wars Outlaws saying that they were a little disappointed in the review scores and that the stock price reacted to the sales of the game. One more Ubisoft, actually two more Ubisoft stories, and then we'll move on. Ubisoft is giving away $9 in virtual currency for the free-to-play shooter X-Defiant, and you can get that by simply logging into the game over the coming weeks. This is a... I don't know. I haven't played X-Defiant in a long time. I don't even know what 900 X coins, which is $9 worth of value, gets you. But they are selling 1,000 X coins for $10. So maybe they're thinking, oh, you get 900 and then you get another, you buy 10 and then you buy 1,000 and you'll have enough money for whatever. If I'm the cynic in me thinks that if you get $900 X coins and they let you buy $1,000 worth of 1,000 X coins for $10, I bet there's something in that store that is 1,900 X coins. I bet there's something that's just out of reach. Like, I bet there's something that's 1,000 X coins. I bet there's something that's 1,900 X coins. I bet there's something that's just out of reach that's going to require you to spend more money on this game. I'll tell you right now, $9 worth of free virtual currency for X-Defiant ain't going to get me to get back into that game. The promotion will also offer players weapon and battle pass XP boosters, and is being billed as a celebration of the end of X-Defiant Season 1. Will it be the only season that X-Defiant has? We'll find out. But I'm not going to waste my time with X-Defiant. I think I'm good. If you remember, people were incredibly unhappy that the Crew was shut down by Ubisoft. Remember, the Crew was an online-only game, even if you played it by yourself, an online-only open-world racing game. And people were not happy. Ubisoft seems to want to go after the goodwill, the hearts and minds of the people that are fans of the Crew games. And the reason why I say that is because the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest will be getting offline modes. The original game went offline in April, is no longer playable. And now they've announced that the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest will be completely playable offline. They put out an announcement saying, we want to acknowledge that some of you voiced concerns about access to the Crew games. This is the senior creative director of the franchise at Ivory Tower. Said, today we want to express our commitment to the future of the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest. We are currently exploring different solutions and can confirm an offline mode to ensure long-term access to both titles. After almost a decade of support, we will be, decommissioning the Crew 1 on March 31st, 2024. We understand this may be disappointing for players still enjoying the game, but is necessary due to the upcoming server infrastructure and licensing constraints. Our goals remain to provide the best action driving game experience for players and deliver on it. We are continuing to provide new content and support for the Crew 2 and recently launched the Crew Motorfest. We thank everybody who played the Crew 1 and contributed to building this great community that lives on with the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest. The Crew Motorfest also provided an overview of the game's Season 5 update, which kicks off the title's second year of content in November with the introduction of the island of Maui. Remember, that game takes place in Hawaii. It is not the continental United States. The Crew is on sale if that's your thing. But what I mean is the Crew your thing or not? I just mean buying video games when they're on sale. If buying video games when they're on sale is your thing, I have good news for you, because the Crew 2 is like $2. Like, if you go to I bought it. I now own the Crew 2. But the Crew the Crew 2 is on Steam. If that is your thing, it's about $2. It's also on sale on PC and on PlayStation 5 and PS4 and all that stuff. It's available wherever you get video games. You can get video games, and the Crew digitally is like 98% off. It's like $2. So I bought the Crew 2. I've also installed the Crew 2. So maybe next week I will tell you if the Crew 2 is any better than I remember it being. We'll find out. The Crew Motorfest also on sale. If that is your thing, it's like $27 on sale now, plus the deluxe edition, the gold edition, the ultimate edition, the yada, the Mina, the Santa Maria, all the yada yada yada. Anyways, so now I own the Crew 2. I don't know what that means, other than maybe I'll play it, but I don't know. This is a longer podcast. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Eurogamers top 100 games, modern games, some Embracer Studio, Embracer Group news, some Like a Dragon news, some Destiny news, so much more. Stick around. We ain't going anywhere. Welcome back to the podcast. I am GnittWitt, and we're going to be celebrating 25 years of Eurogamer. Congratulations to Eurogamer for surviving, all these years. So what Eurogamer has done is they've done 100 games of the last. They're modern. They're modern. I guess I would call them modern. Because the oldest game on here on this list came out in 1990. That's not really modern, I guess. But I came out in 1994. Does that mean I'm not a modern man? I don't know. Anyways, regardless, we're gonna run down, because I think it'd be fun. We're gonna run down all 100 of Eurogamer's top 100 games that you can play right now. I guess that's their argument, is like, hey, these are easy to play games. You can play this game. right? This isn't some obscure, weird game that's hard to find. You can play this game, right? And we're going to run down 100 to 1. And nothing like too crazy. If I've played it, I'll let you know. All right, 100, we got Honkai Star Rail. I've never played it, but somewhere Jeff Keighley is probably very excited that people are giving Honkai Star Rail a shout out. No Man's Sky 99. I think No Man's Sky is a very cool game. I've sometimes struggled with the survival elements of that game. I think some of it can be a little tedious and a little tricky, but it is a very cool game. And that new graphics update they did for No Man's Sky is absolutely gorgeous. That game now looks absolutely incredible. Ho-Hokum. I've never, oh yeah, I should also mention maybe release dates. Honkai Star Rail 2023, No Man's Sky 2016, Ho-Hokum 2014. I've never played Ho-Hokum. Alan Wake is 97, 2023. You've probably heard me talk a lot about Alan Wake 2. I think it's an incredible game and everybody should play it. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe is 96. That came out in 2022. I really like the Stanley Parable. I never played the Ultra Deluxe version. It's a very cool first-person adventure game. A lot of fun. 96 for the Stanley Parable. 95, The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. I've never played The Last of Us Part 2. Might and Magic Clash of Heroes. That's 2009. That's 94 on this list. Never played a Might and Magic game. Couldn't tell you. Diablo 4. 93 from last year. I think Diablo 4 is a very cool game that never quite got its hooks in me in terms of a live service, constantly updated game, though I hope the new expansion is good. City Skylines 92, that's 2015. That is a fantastic game. That's probably one of the best, actually, if not the best, city building games that you are going to play. Absolutely lovely game, and it makes City Skylines 2, well, City Skylines 2. We've talked enough about City Skylines 2, but City Skylines 92, that's a great game. Luminous Remastered, that is a puzzle game. I've never played Luminous. I meant to. 91 on this list, 2018. Yakuza 0, 2015, that is 90 on this list. I've been meaning to get to Yakuza. I've only played Yakuza Kiwami 1. I'm excited to get around to more Yakuza. I just don't know when. Football Manager 2024 is 89 on this list. Sure. That seems like something that a Eurogamer would be into. Doom 2016, that's 88 on this list. Doom 2016 is a badass first-person shooter. It really is one of the best games of the PlayStation 4 generation, in my humble opinion. Very, very happy to see it on this list on any number. Doki Doki Literature Club is 87 on this list. I don't know what Doki Doki Literature Club. I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is. Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. That is the 2019 released at 86 on this list. I love Age of Empires 2. In fact, I love Age of Empires 2 so much that I don't even play a lot of other real-time strategy games, because to me, Age of Empires 2 is kind of the end-all be-all to some extent. Like, I'm not a big Age of Mythology fan. I'm not a big Age of Empires 3 fan. I did play a little bit of Age of Empires 4, but for me, Age of Empires 2, I would put that on a top 10 favorite games list of all time. If I did one, I probably would. The Definitive Edition is great. That's 86 on the list. 85, we got Halo, the Master Chief Collection. I don't think you'll find a better collection of fantastic first-person shooters than the Halo Master Chief Collection. That's the 2014 release of the game. 85 on the list. I think Halo Master Chief Collection is fantastic. Ritmos 2023 Ritmos 84. I've never heard of the game. Desperados 3 is 83 on the list. I never played Desperados 3. Streets of Rage 4 is 82 on the list. I've played a little bit of Streets of Rage 4. I think it's a good return to form for that classic arcade beat 'em up brawler type game, but I think your mileage may vary when it comes to how dated that gameplay might feel, despite it being updated for 2020. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is 81 on the list. That is one of the few Assassin's Creed games I've not spent a lot of time with. Maybe I'll download it and fire it up one of these days, but I have not gotten to it nearly as much as I would like. Turbo Overkill is 80. I've played a decent amount of Turbo Overkill. That is a wicked fast first-person shooter, one of the fastest first-person shooters I played in a really long time, a classic throwback in a lot of ways, retro graphics and aesthetic and vibes, and I think it's a lot of fun. I never quite got around to finishing it. 80 on the list. That game is pretty neat. Persona 5 Royal. You know me, I'm a Persona 4 guy. I never really quite got into Persona 4, but if I did, I would definitely, more of a Persona 4 guy. If I spent more time with Persona 5, I would probably go back to Persona 5 Royal. I just haven't done so recently. Persona 5 Royal is number 79 on the list. Number 78 is Gran Turismo 7, the 7th Gran Turismo. I've never played it. Portal is 77. That's Portal 2 specifically Portal 2, 77 on the list. Didn't spend a lot of time with the Portal games. I know that they are first-person puzzle games. Dishonored 2, 76. That is Dishonored 2, the second one. Dishonored is really cool. In fact, I think Dishonored might be some of the best playing, arcane games that they've made. I even might prefer Dishonored 2 over something like Deathloop. Psychonauts 2 is 75, a game I really need to go back and play some more of, because that's just a charming, wonderful 3D platformer kind of, adventure game. 75 on the list for Psychonauts 2. Undertale is 74. People love Undertale. I've never given it a second. I've never tried it. I don't know nothing about it. Other than that people like it. 73, League of Legends. I don't play League of Legends. 72 is Super Mario World. Super Mario World, also the unique distinction of being the oldest game on this list, having released in 1990. Super Mario World is one of the best, if not the best, 2D side-scrolling Mario games that there is. I love Super Mario World, and I'm happy to see it on the list at 72. I think we're really going to get into the weeds of things once I start criticizing what games have made it onto the top 10, top 20 list like that. So for now, if a game's on the list, I'm just happy it's there. Into the Breach, 71 is a turn-based strategy game. I've never played Into the Breach. Forza Horizon 5 makes the list at number 70. I am just happy to see it on the list. Way to go, Forza Horizon 5 at number 70. Road Warden is 69. I've never even heard of Road Warden. I couldn't tell you. Number 68 is Llamasoft, the Jeff Minter story. That is another playable, historical documentary similar to Atari 50, but it's all focused on the man, the myth, the legend, Jeff Minter. That's number 68. 67 is Mass Effect Legendary Edition. I think Mass Effect Legendary Edition is a great version of the Mass Effect trilogy, and the Mass Effect trilogy is the best thing that BioWare has ever done. 67 on the list. Grow Home is the 3D adventure platforming game featuring Bud the Robot, a really great looking art style, a really fun use of climbing mechanics. Grow Home is a cool game. Would I put it at 66 compared to what we've seen so far? Maybe not, but it's on there from your friends and mine at Ubisoft. A game that should be a lot higher on the list as far as I'm concerned is Titanfall 2. That's 65 on the list. Titanfall 2, one of the greatest first-person shooters ever made, if you ask me. I'm excited to see it on the list, but I think 65, compared to what I've seen so far, is a little low. Invisible Ink is 64. I've never played Invisible Ink. I think it's a turn-based strategy game. Metroid Prime Remastered is the remastered version of Metroid Prime that came out last year. 63 on this list. I have never played a Metroid Prime game. Inscription is the horror card game. It is 62 on this list. I have never played. Inscription. Space Giraffe. Space Giraffe is a arcade shooter from your friend and mine, Jeff Minter. That has made it to 61 on this list. Grand Theft Auto Online. I don't know if they're specifically referring to Grand Theft Auto 5. I don't know. But Grand Theft Auto Online made this list at number 60. 59 is Pikmin 4. 58 is Hitman 3. Hitman 3 is also the new collection that has all of the Hitman games on it. Hitman 3 is a fantastic game. Hitman 1 and 2 are incredible games. Go play Hitman. 58 on the list. XCOM Enemy Unknown, that is the reboot of the XCOM series. That's a 2012 game, 57. I love XCOM Enemy Unknown. I don't even like a lot of turn-based strategy games, but I love me some XCOM Enemy Unknown. If you like the idea of moving without all the stress, you can play Unpacking, which makes it to number 56 on the list. It is a kind of a moving unboxing puzzle game. Never played it. Mini Motorways is 55. I've also never played it. Disco Elysium makes it to number 54. I need to spend more time with Disco Elysium. I keep telling myself I need to play more Disco Elysium. I have not gotten around to do so, but it's made it to number 54 on the list. Fez is at 53. Fez is a side-scrolling 2D puzzle adventure game. I have never played it. People swear by this game. The Case of the Golden Idol, it makes its way to number 52. I have never played it, but people swear by it. It's like an old school adventure game, but for a modern world. Now, this is the Batman Arkham Collection, which is all 3 Batman games from the looks of things. So they are putting some bundles in here, but the Batman Arkham trilogy makes it to number 51 on the list. The Resident Evil 4 remake cracks the top 50 spot. That's a great game, and it's a great version of that game. Very happy to see it. Monster Hunter Rise makes it to number 49. Never played it. The Sims 4 is 48 on the list. I think Sims 4 is a fantastic game, even with the insane amount of stuff you can spend money on for what it's worth. Pokemon Go. Number 47, if you want to run around in traffic catching Pokemon, that's the game for you. Number 47, Pokemon Go. Number 46, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 Remastered. 2 of the greatest games ever made, in my humble opinion, in a fantastic collection. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 is a great game. Number 46 on the list. Number 45 is Fortnite. Fortnite, I think Fortnite's a cool game. I think Fortnite's really good. Whether it should be higher or lower, I'll leave that up to you. But Fortnite, number 45. Shadow of Colossus, that's the 2018 remake of Shadow of Colossus. That is the PlayStation action game, action adventure, boss battling game. Kind of a neat game, never really stuck with me. It made it to number 44. Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, that is the part 2 of the Final Fantasy 7 remake trilogy, is number 43. I'm looking forward to playing that game when it eventually makes its way to PC. Hotline Miami. If you want some hot, grisly murder, this is perhaps, Hitman also quite a violent game. But actually, there are a lot of violent games on this list. I was going to say Hotline Miami might be the most violent game on this list, but then I remembered that we also had Diablo, The Last of Us, Alan Wake, Doom, and Hitman, to say the least. Anyways, Hotline Miami is a fun, top-down, wicked, fast, and brutally hard action game. I played through that first game, Hotline Miami. I really liked it, and it's made its way to number 42. Ollie Ollie World is cool. It's number 41. I prefer Ollie Ollie 2. I can't quite put my finger on what it is about Ollie Ollie World that I prefer, but Ollie Ollie World is a skateboarding game. It's a 2D side-scrolling skateboarding game, and it is number 41 on this list. We are up to number 40. Burnout Paradise Remastered, a game that should absolutely be way, way higher on this list. In my humble opinion, Burnout Paradise, one of the best, if not the best, open world racing games. It's better than Need for Speed. It's better than The Crew. It's better than most things that are out here today. 2018 remastered version, number 40. Dwarf Fortress is number 39. I've never played it. Counter-Strike 2. It's funny that Counter-Strike 2 is on this list because I have never played Counter-Strike 2. I only played the original Counter-Strike Go, but that's number 38. Number 37, Microsoft Flight Simulator. If you want to call it a video game, cool. If you want to call it a simulator, cool. It's 37. Animal Well, one of the best games to come out this year, one of the most critically acclaimed games, is number 36. I've never played Animal Well, but it's on the list. Number 36. Stardew Valley is number 35. I think Stardew Valley, we were actually recently talking about Stardew Valley, is a really cool game in terms of, your farming, lifestyle, RPG simulators. It never really stuck with me. I didn't keep playing it, but it's on this list at number 35. One of my favorite games of the last, 4 or 5 years, Hades, the action game where you are escaping from hell as the son of Hades himself, is a beautiful story. It is a fantastic action game. It should probably be higher on this list, but it's number 34. Go play Hades. Cocoon, last year, the puzzle adventure exploration game, didn't quite stick with me, but it's number 33. Returnal is the PS5 and PC sci-fi shooter. It's number 32 on this list. I've never played Returnal. FTL is number 31. I have never played FTL. Civilization 6. I have Civilization 6. I have it installed. I have never played Civilization 6, but it's on the list at number 30. Hollow Knight. I think Hollow Knight is a little too hard, or I'm a little too stupid for it, but it is a 2D side-scrolling action adventure game. People love it. It's number 28 on the list. Sorry, 29 on the list. Number 28 is Minecraft. Number 27 is Bloodborne. If you want a Souls-like, that's your first Souls-like on the list, though I wouldn't be surprised if Elden Ring was somewhere on this list as we get closer and closer to the top. That's number 27 for Bloodborne. Number 26 is Sea of Thieves. Number 25 is A Short Hike. A Short Hike is kind of an isometric, top-down, 3D adventure platforming game. It is gorgeous, it is super cute, and it is a really short game. I was able to get through in about 2-ish hours, but that didn't stop me from having an absolute blast with A Short Hike. I think A Short Hike is a beautiful game, and it's number 25 on the list. We're in the top 25. Let's keep going. Number 24, Cyberpunk. I gotta say, Cyberpunk has had a hell of a journey since coming out in 2020 to now being regarded as one of the best games of recent memory. I think it has rightfully earned that place. I don't know if I would put it in a top 25, but it's still a very, very good game, and it's easily my favorite CD Projekt Red game, and that's number 24. Number 23 is Helldivers 2. Maybe a little bit of recency bias with Helldivers 2 being on this list. I know that Helldivers 2 is also going through some struggles right now as it relates to updates. The community doesn't seem to be in love with Helldivers 2, but it's on the list anyways at number 23. Dwarf Romantic. I've never played Dwarf Romantic, but it's on this list at number 22. Spelunky 2 is on this list. I played a lot of Spelunky 1. I think Spelunky is a very cool game. I don't know what 2 does differently, bringing it to the table, but it's on the list at number 21. Number 20 is Half-Life Alyx. That is the first-person shooter with VR. It's a VR game, and it's the only VR game we've had on this list, and it's number 20. Super Mario Bros. Wonder. That is the Wonder game that came out, Super Mario Bros. Game that came out last year. That's number 19. Meant to get around to it, never did, but it looks fantastic. One of my favorite games in recent memory, What Remains of Edith Finch, is a first-person narrative adventure game. It is a gorgeous, beautiful, kind of heartbreaking game with a fantastic story and a great sense of imagination and wonder. I love What Remains of Edith Finch. I think it's a beautiful game, and I'm happy to see it on this list at number 18. Don Don Patchy Blissful Death Reincarnation. I don't know what that is, but it's number 17. Mediterranean Inferno, a game I've also never heard of, is number 16. 2 games I've never heard of. Final Fantasy 14, A Realm Reborn, is number 15 on the list. A game I kind of want to get back into, but unfortunately the Square Enix account stuff is an absolute nightmare. I bought the game once, and I think I might have locked myself out of the account. I could always rebuy it on Steam or something, and I might do that one day. That's the online, massively multiplayer online role-playing game set in the Final Fantasy world, and it's number 15. People seem pretty happy with it. It's pretty popular as far as MMOs go, and I know they put out that Dawn Trail expansion earlier this year. Citizen Sleeper is number 14. I never played Citizen Sleeper. I meant to. I never did. Norco, number 13, also a game I never got around to playing. I always meant to. Tunic, a game that I think I touched a little bit. That's the Zelda Fox looking game. That's number 12 on the list. Street Fighter 6 is number 11. What I've played to Street Fighter 6 is absolutely awesome. I meant to play more of it, but I haven't gotten around to it. Number 10, The Return of Obra Dinn. That is the first-person adventure investigating what happened on a cursed ship game. Kind of like Ghost Ship, not quite. Pretty neat. Next Machina is the top-down arcade shooter from Housemarque, the same people that made Returnal. That game is super neat. Also really gorgeous looking, great particle effects, great look, great style. Really cool game, and that's number 9. Number 8 is Elden Ring. You know what Elden Ring is. Animal Crossing, New Horizons, number 7. That is the most recent Animal Crossing game. Number 6 is Baldur's Gate 3. We're going to talk more about Baldur's Gate 3 later on in the podcast. I know this is a long episode, but we're going to keep going. Number 5 is The Legend of Zelda: The Breath of the Wild. I've played Breath of the Wild. I think that's a great game. I should have played more of it when I had the chance, but I didn't. Super Smash Brothers Ultimate is number 4. I don't think so. Listen, Smash Brothers is cool, but I don't think it belongs in a top 10. Outer Wilds is supposed to be a fantastic story-based sci-fi game. I never played it. I'm kicking myself for never playing it. I could always go back and play it if I wanted to, but I haven't. Number 2 is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. That's way too high on this list. And number 1 is a game that, without a doubt, deserves to be number 1 because it is an incredible version of the greatest game ever made, and that's Tetris Effect. Number 1 on this list. Whew, we got through it. It was a long one, but we finally got through it. Congratulations to Tetris Effect being number 1 on Eurogamers Top 100. Embracer Group have a studio called Lost Boys Interactive. They have made another round of layoffs. Lost Boys Interactive have also worked on Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, Diablo 4, and PlayerUnknown's Battleground, which was originally formed in 2017. They had a heavy round of layoffs in January, and the cuts are still coming. I'm trying to find the actual number. But as of right now, it is unspecified the amount of people laid off at Lost Boys Interactive. Like a Dragon developers have been out there kind of teasing their games, the future of the series and all that stuff. And they have put together a collection of words that as someone who's in his 30s is pretty excited about. They say that the Like a Dragon developers say the series will continue to focus on, quote, middle-aged guy things, and that means that I can continue to grow into middle-aged with the Like a Dragon series. I know I'm only 30, and 30 is the new 20, and I don't feel like I'm 20, but that won't stop me from being excited about the future of the Like a Dragon series, which will continue to focus on, quote, middle-aged guy things. Bungie's been out there talking about the future of Destiny 2, saying that it'll switch over to a 2, quote, medium expansions per year release schedule instead of the 1 big expansion per year release schedule. What else we got? We're going through a lot of quick news stories here because there's not too much to say. Oh, remember Concord? You probably don't. But anyways, it's still going to be a part of the Amazon Prime Video game anthology series Secret Level. They have not removed that Concord episode. It will still be one of the 15 episodes, despite the game no longer existing, which is kind of crazy. So if you remember Secret Level, that's the video game anthology series where they've taken a lot of animation and stylings from the games and then kind of making new stories and stuff like that based on those games. And Concord will continue to be one of those games. And finally, the Hawkman, Tony Hawk, claims that he's talking to Activision again and that they are working on something that the fans will truly appreciate. In 2022, they put out the Tony Hawk's, what was it? Sorry. In 2022, Tony Hawk claimed that the second collection of remakes following Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 was planned by Vicarious Visions until it was absorbed by Activision entirely. He said that they were supposed to be working on 3 and 4. My hope is that they still do 3 and 4. And I even hope that they just put it all back together as a collection and say it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oh, I would love a new Tony Hawk's game. Hell, I would love a remake of Tony Hawk's 3 and 4. And hopefully that's what happens with this new talk that's happening between Tony Hawk and Activision. I'd put in another break, but I'm not going to. Instead, we're going to keep on rolling, talk about the games that I've been playing. And really, I've been playing 2 games. I've actually been bouncing around playing a lot of other different games, but the 2 that I am prepared to talk about today are Baldur's Gate 3 and Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2. So I'm just going to quickly say with Baldur's Gate, I think that Baldur's Gate is a fantastic game. I have no arguments for why people like it and all of that stuff. I just think that the gameplay might be a little fiddly. It might be a little too open-ended for my taste. And to be honest, I started to find the combat to be a little bit tiresome. My understanding is that when I made my character a monk, that I had made maybe not the best choice, because the monks don't get to be very powerful until the higher levels. Whereas if you pick a character class like the fighter and you use something like one-handed weapons, you can take a lot of damage and deliver a lot of damage, and you are pretty powerful consistently throughout the game, versus something like a monk that becomes more powerful later on. I just, after about 15 or so hours into the game, I just wasn't really feeling the gameplay, to be honest. I didn't like trying to disarm traps and navigate the environment and the combat. It wasn't my thing. So I've put down Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know if I will have the patience to return to that game or not. I don't know. But it's a fantastic game in the writing and the characters and the story and the world and the choices and all of that stuff. I just think when you get down to actually moving through the environment and navigating the world and the menus and the combat, it just wasn't my thing. But you know what seems to be my thing is Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2. Man, that game feels like everything that I need in my life right now. It is ridiculous. It is over the top. It is hilariously violent and aggressive, and it takes itself so serious that you can't help but just laugh at how dumb it is. It's a dumb game, and it's like, I don't want to compare it to something like Commando, the movie or something, but it's so serious with none of the one-liners, for what it's worth. The Warhammer 40K universe is so dark and brooding and foreboding and twisted and corrupt that the idea that you are this big, badass super marine just wasting alien enemies in your path, it's not only quite the power trip, but it's also just a pretty compelling game from what I've played so far. So I'm pretty early into Space Marine 2. I'm only like 2 hours in. I played the intro story mission, and I've played the next story mission after that. And I just want to quickly kind of bring up the kind of how we got to this point in the game. Like, where are we at with the story? So it takes place in the 41st millennium, hence the 40K world. You play as, and the minor spoilers, just minor spoilers for the opening of the game. But basically, you are a character named Titus, and you are entering the jungle world of Kadaku to do something called Project Aurora. You play as Titus, who in the opening credits is part of something called the Death Watch Kill Team, which is just a collection of words put together in the coolest way possible. And basically, you are going to Kadaku, Titus, Dimitri and Titus. He just goes by Titus. Not a lot of like full name, full Christian names used in the 40K world, from what I can see. Basically, Titus and his Death Watch kill team are sent to aid this planet of Kadaku. During the descent, there's a crash, and his team gets wiped out, and he's the only one left. He is meant to deliver a bomb to Kadaku that destroys a lot of the enemies in these Tyranids. Are these like little creature, like, they seem smart, like they're like this mix between like xenomorph-esque and like, I don't know, like a mutant, like, you know, like sentient, like humanoid almost. They're a little weird in that way. I mean, xenomorphs are humanoid. If you looked at what a Tyranid is, you'd be like, that's kind of a xenomorph. Anyways, you're meant to deliver a bomb that wipes out this part of the planet. You get killed in the process. Again, I said spoilers. Titus is killed by some big bad Tyranid, and then you wake up and basically this other, how would I describe it? I don't know a lot about the factions and like the politics of Warhammer. I'm not an expert in Warhammer, but basically, you are the only survivor of this Death Watch kill team. You are mortally wounded in battle and then rescued by a different group of Space Marines that are referred to as the Ultramarines. So the game basically opens, you play through this level, you die, and the bomb doesn't work. And then you're woken up by this Ultramarine group that have basically put you back together RoboCop style. Like there's this intro where it's like shows them making him the better Ultramarine and all of this stuff. So first of all, already out of the gate, when I hear the words Death Watch kill team and an opening to a game that's pretty much RoboCop, I'm on board already. I'm already like, let's fucking do this. If I'm a better badass Space Marine than I thought I was, that's super awesome. So you wake up, you find out that that you have been ordered to take on this Primaris surgery. Basically, Primaris transforms Space Marines into faster and stronger Primaris Marines, but they had to do it in order to save your life. Again, RoboCop. Just think RoboCop, basically. However, you know, Titus is not a natural Primaris. He wasn't born a Primaris. He was Primaris. He was turned into a Primaris. So when Titus joins the Ultramarines, he's told that he cannot return to his Death Watch kill team because of the debt that he kind of owes this new team that he finds himself in. So it's a scenario where you have this like RoboCop-like character in Titus who is now part of a team that he's not a native to, and was also told that he needs to earn his freedom by working with these people. However, some of these people might start to suspect that Titus is not who he says he is, because he has a shady record of, you know, it's like this weird scenario where it's like you're doing this black ops, you know, undercover. Nobody's supposed to know you're here. Nobody's supposed to know who you are, but you're working with people who are naturally born, from all I can tell, Ultramarines, and he is not. So it's this interesting scenario where like you're trying to earn back your freedom, fighting with these Ultramarines who are more hardcore than the team that you were already a part of. Even though it's a weird scenario. I'm getting maybe a little mixed up with my story here, but it's a story where like the Death Watch kill team is like idolized by the Ultramarines, even though the Ultramarines are genetically faster super soldiers than even the regular Space Marines. It's a really neat and fun setup and premise that gets going pretty quickly. That's all I'll say about the premise so far. Is it's a lot of RoboCop shit, and I love RoboCop, so I'm very happy about the premise and where the story is going. And basically the premise, after the setup, you are basically taking on missions and jobs for the Ultramarines, hoping to get back your freedom. It is a mix. The gameplay is a mix of a third person kind of God of War, light God of War-esque hacking and slashing with shooting. So you are not just shooting as a Space Marine, but you're also using your chainsaw sword. It's part sword, part chainsaw to cut through enemies in this game. And I think the shooting and the shooting and the gunplay is a little on the basic side. Like the melee combat is pretty basic. The shooting seems pretty basic, but it makes up for it with scale, scope, and ridiculousness. It is a very gooey, very gross, very gory game. You are just blowing these little, a lot of enemy creatures left, right, and center, getting covered in blood, ripping them apart with your chainsaw, ripping them apart with your bare hands, blowing their heads off with shotguns. It's a lot of like, if you want to know what it means to be a bad motherfucker in the world of Warhammer 40K, they have given you that power fantasy carte blanche when it comes to Space Marine 2. So even though it's a little basic, I find it to be pretty effective and it gets me through the levels no problem. Like when I'm in it and I'm playing it, I feel like a BMF for sure. Graphically, I think the game looks pretty good. I think when it comes to scale and scope, like when you're in the outer environments and you're looking at the Kadaku world and the jungle and all the stuff that you're in, like you just see ships flying over and like a zillion enemy like Tyranids just crawling down a mountainside, and it almost gives you this feeling of like World War Z or Days Gone or something, of like, wow, there's just a zillion of these creatures just crawling towards me. Like it's really, really cool to see that sort of ridiculous scale and scope. And, you're a big, bulky, badass Space Marine. So having it be 1,000 of these, razor teeth and claw creatures isn't that big of a deal for you because you're badass. So when you have these ridiculous, brooding, grim, dark Space Marines ripping and tearing through these, zillions of creatures on what's otherwise a pretty gorgeous looking planet, and, variety of jungle and swamp and marsh and, interior areas and this blood and this gore. Like, yeah, Space Marine might be a B game, but it's maybe one of the best B games I've played in a while. I'm very early on. Things could always change. My understanding is that the story is a little short, like it's only like an 8-ish hour story. It also has a cooperative mode, so you can go through co-op with your friends. You can even play the co-op in the story mode. So if you want to play through the story mode with your friends, you totally can. I've been playing it totally by myself, though it does have a separate story. It has a separate cooperative mode where you're going through different missions unrelated to the story. You can even play the co-op. My understanding is you can even play the co-op with AI. So if you want to play the co-op missions completely by yourself with AI, you totally can. And then it also has a competitive mode. I haven't played the co-op, separate co-op mode or the multiplayer competitive, because when you start it, it says, hey, it may spoil the story. So I just ignored it. And I haven't actually gotten around to making too much progress. Like I said, I'm like 2 hours in to Space Marine so far. If that story ends up being as short as it is, I think $80 is a little steep for what Space Marine is. I think it's a really nice looking game. I think it plays fine. I think your mileage may vary when it comes to playing the co-op mode and the multiplayer competitive mode. But I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's super dumb. I think it's just so dumb in so many fun ways. It's ridiculous. It's over the top. It is super serious. It takes itself super serious. Like there's no, like, when I say commando, I just mean in terms of like, you are a bad man. You are a bad man doing some bad things. And I think that game really sticks the landing in terms of that power fantasy, even if it does take itself incredibly seriously. So overall, right now, I'm happy with Space Marine 2. I don't have any bad things really to say other than it might be a little short. It might be a little expensive for what it's currently offering, but damn if that game just isn't, a fun story-based third-person action game, the type of thing that I am always kind of craving. They don't make a lot of those types of third-person story-based action games. Like, there's not a lot of those out there these days, and I'm happy that this one is out there, and I'm even more happy that it's good. So if you're looking for something that's a mix between like a God of War meets Helldivers-esque third-person shooting action game, look no further than Space Marine 2. From what I've played so far, I'm having an absolute blast, and I'm hoping to play some more when I get the chance. That is going to do it for the podcast. I have been GnittWitt. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt. That's Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all of that in one convenient location, linktree.com/GnittWitt. We'll talk to you all next week. We'll probably have a live show next week. We'll see you then. Take it easy.